This episode of Small Town Western New York was made possible by the following supporters. Hi, on this episode of Small Town Western New York, I'm taking a day trip to a place that hosts one of the Southtown's most popular summer festivals, and yet it's still overshadowed by its bigger sibling just down the road. You know, I think this town really has a quiet charm and unique character all its own, and it really starts to define that very specific Western New York character and feel you get once you start to break out of Buffalo's burbs. I'm headed to the town of Eden. Deacon Samuel Tubbs made his way here into the area in 1808 with his two sons and his nephew and his wife. They made their way up 18 Mile Creek from Lake Erie, settling into now what is the Eden Valley. His other two nephews made their way here a year later, and their little settlement became known as Tubbs Hollow. An 1810 census claimed that 4,000 people were now living in the area, and a decision was made to split the larger landmass that was known as the town of Willink into smaller townships, which included Hamburg, Concord, and Eden. Eventually, those towns begat the towns of Boston and Evans. With its wealth of fertile soil and, of course, 18 Mile Creek, Eden has always been an ag town. But just over 100 years after the town's inception, a different type of industry came to town when in 1912, a traveling salesman named Emil Sorg came up with the idea of manufacturing a little metal noisemaker that was quite fun to use to town. The original Kazoo Company is one of the big year-round draws to Eden and is now the last metal kazoo factory in North America. And you can't take a trip to Eden without a visit to this place. It's part museum, part factory, and part retail shop.
The Kazoo Factory was built in 1907. However, when it was first built, it was not the Kazoo Factory. They didn't make one single kazoo here. What they did make were metal objects. It was a sheet metal plant, and they make things like stovepipe and stove parts. However, the people were making wooden kazoos down in Macon, Georgia. They wanted to make them out of metal instead of wood. So they contacted the folks here in Eden and decided to give it a try and started making metal kazoos. Well, the kazoos became so popular that by 1915, this officially became the Kazoo Factory.
While Eden is widely known for its ever-popular corn festival held every August, if you travel just a little further down the road when you're here, you'll soon discover a cute collection of mom-and-pop shops and restaurants, all tucked into a very walkable neighborhood that's full of Main Street USA charm and history. While I was there, I had the chance to sit down with the town's historian at the relatively new library to talk a little bit about the town, its past, and share some mutual hard-earned wisdom. You know, we all know Eden for the Corn Festival.
Right.
But do you know Eden?
There's more to Eden than the Corn Festival.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
And for all of these towns, they all have like the one draw, but then that's a lot of times all of someone might see of the town.
I think people would be very surprised to realize how much history there is here in this little town. And there were some really neat people that lived here.
Yeah.
You know, Asa Warren was very forward-thinking. We've had State Senator, Senator Cheney, just the breadth of the history that's here.
Sure.
And always having been interested in history, I'm always a little surprised when people think it doesn't matter.
Right.
But I really think it's important to know
huge.
what came before so you can appreciate what's happening now.
Right.
And hopefully make things better in the future.
Well, it gives you a connection.
A connection,
and
yes.
that connection really serves us, and it serves our hearts, and it serves our sense of place, our sense of belonging. You
And
know?
I think that's needed more than ever today.
It is. We all feel detached.
It really is.
You know, and
People feel so detached, and especially our young people.
Yep.
But it's good to have roots.
Eden reminds me of what the great little ag towns that used to be heavily peppered throughout the heart of this country must have been like, sometime during the middle of the last century, well before the endless suburban sprawl and the gigantic two-headed monsters of corporatized factory farming and megastore retail chains swallowed them whole. It's exactly the type of place where everyone has always greeted me with a hello and a smile, and has never been in too much of a hurry to exchange a few genuinely kind words. And we could all use a little kindness these days.
This episode of Small Town Western New York was made possible by the following supporters.